Chat in progress.
Hey,
We
world.
have, well, Tom brought smoothie with rum. He's going to finish that, which is a little bit. And I'm going to pour us out coffee with whiskey.
Mixing our booze, we are, yeah.
Because we're grown-ups. We're allowed to do that.
Yeah. Don't do this at home, kiddies.
Yeah, I don't think kiddies would watch this show. I think they'd get bored in a hurry.
Yeah, probably.
Too
We're
old.
not with the...
Two old fogies yapping it up over coffee and chocolate. So there's coffee.
Groovy.
So we watched Chris Hadfield's Rare Earth with his son, whose name I've already forgotten.
Yeah, I don't remember you saying it,
Christopher,
so...
I think he's Christopher Hadfield. I don't know. At any rate, he did a talk about Guantanamo Bay and the torture prison there. I didn't realize how bad the torture was.
Neither did I.
I
That was
heard
shocking.
whispers, but I hadn't really,
Thought about it?
well, I hadn't really run across the full story. This is why I clicked on the video. Aside from the fact that I've watched every one of them so far, he even did one on the suicide forest.
Suicide
The
forest?
one that is such a big deal in the news after that jackass went and stood next to a hanged body in it. He goes in there and somehow that's the day someone hung themselves, or he made it up. It may not even have been a real body. Maybe he made a prop and hung it for the video.
Maybe.
No one's ever said that, but I bet he did. And he has gotten so much mileage out of it,
Wow.
you know.
I think I've heard of that, but...
Yeah, well, we're not going to give him any more mileage than that. So, Chris Hadfield, Rare Earth, has covered some really interesting stories of history and culture and lifestyle and different nations, and it's totally worth watching. It's the sort of thing that used to air on the really cool channels, and now it's on YouTube. Because, you know, YouTube is now where it's at when it comes to entertainment. On demand at whatever size chunk you're in the mood for.
And depending what you can afford, for me, I can't afford the large chunk that I know I would consume if I really allowed myself to just go for it.
So now that you know how ugly it is down there, how do you feel about it?
A little angry that it's been allowed to continue, that it was allowed to be that bad. I don't think the punishment fits the crime. I think it's too torturous.
I don't believe punishment actually achieved any useful outcomes. We've learned to raise children without punishment. We've learned to train animals without punishment. I think we can dialogue with foreign cultures without punishment. Punishment is the act of an ego seeking to impose its will through fear. It's not a useful dialogue for education or information transfer. You know, what do humans do with each other? They transfer information. And all of the other stuff they do is decorating, like padding around a package so that it doesn't get lost in transit. It's just information exchange. And when we sit there trying to impose our will on other people, because instead of using conversation to exchange information and exchange goods and exchange products and exchange skills and, you know, share, instead of using it for that, we're using it to try and make everything familiar and comfortable and safe and the same as it always was. And we run into something that's different and we get, oh my God, I don't understand it, which means I can't tell if it's going to hurt me. It must go. You know, like people with a little tiny spider. I'm getting off. I get so hot up about cowardice. It used to be the greatest shame was to be a coward, and now it's the most normal thing in the world. It's astonishing how cowardly people have gotten. They're afraid of
Giving into it too much.
anything, everything.
Fear has a place, but they're giving it too much of one.
Well, and it's the master of deceit. It's where
Yeah,
all of this
it
Guantanamo Bay is coming from.
Yeah, it's coming out of fear.
It's the spear point of evil.
This fear leads to anger and expressing anger.
And cruelty. And the anger is not, the anger that you feel when you hear about Guantanamo Bay is not the same as the anger that lifts up a weapon. They're two different angers. Yours is outrage. That is a child's temper tantrum, which is nothing more than the desire to impose my will on someone else. A tantrum is always about trying to force someone else's hand.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Get
ego.
your way.
Yeah, to get your way.
Yeah.
To hell with figuring out what it is the other party wants. I don't care what they want. I want what I want, and I'm big enough to get it. And it may very well have been that you could have had a fair exchange by stopping to figure out what the other side's interested in. What is your opponent's intention? You're sitting there, you're drawing lines in the sand, and you're not sitting down and saying, what do you want? Find out what they want. It's entirely possible that the two of you can both get what you want and then be on your merry way. That's what borders are for. Yeah. I feel helpless. I just feel so helpless that these big bullies on the block are doing this to people. Yeah, that's that. Fear is the spear point of evil, I tell you. Money is the root, but fear is the point. Well, I live with someone who expresses his fear as anger. And
That's usually how it's expressed.
dodges change. Dodges external control from any direction, even himself. But dodges all control.
Oh, and the one sore subject on the internet right now is gun control. Oh, gosh.
Oh, geez, I'm so tired of that dialogue.
Me too. Yeah.
Just shoot them all and get it over with then. One or the other. I'd really rather they just, set some limits on gun ownership. Every other civilized nation on the planet has done that.
Yep.
They've still got this insane idea that if they decide that they don't agree with the White House, it's their God-given right to march in and shoot people, thereby taking over the government and instilling the proper democracy in its place. And yet,
and fear is there too.
they should have done that 50 years ago. They're never going to do it. And a lone gunman can't. And nobody's ever going to organize a big enough civilian militia to do it. And anyone who does is going to be doing it for profit, not good intentions. It's insane. It really is, to have this idea that your gun is a tool to control your government. It's not. It's the least effective control you can have. You can write letters. You can make phone calls. You can show up with 50 of your best friends with carrying signs. All of those things, as well as voting.
Yeah, there's an old idea. Vote.
You put all of those things together, because any one without the other is pointless. It's like a table missing a leg. You have to be actively participating in your government to have any kind of control over your government. People don't seem to get that. I think it's because the corporations have been controlling the education to make sure they don't know. Because corporations are the ones that get controlled by the government when the people are in charge. And laws that benefit the people over the corporations start happening. The corporations don't like that. It cuts the bottom line.
Which is money.
It affects their bottom line income, and they don't like it.
These are really, 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 really good chocolates.
I
Holy
know,
crap.
right?
Mm.
The recipe comes out next week.
Mm.
This was one of my, I really want to make some chocolate, but I have no energy, no imagination. I just want to make it simple recipes. Where I just smack this together, smack that together, hit them with each other, and send them off to the fridge. The recipe is, it was sloppily done as well, but I've got the recipe in the description. I've got the narration explaining what I'm doing, and then I've got visual of everything I did. And like the original, before I sped it up, recording was only 20 minutes. I mean, the whole thing was a half-hour job.
The bottom is a really good marzipan.
It came out really nice.
And the top is a really nice chocolate.
I think it's the vanilla in it. Oh, and the almond flour I got is finer than it used to. They're grinding it finer now.
Oh yeah, I can tell.
It makes a big difference.
That's why. Yeah, the texture is
And the stuff that you get in commercial marzipan
nice.
was probably thrice ground to get it so like a fine powder. And then they're using a sugar syrup with glucose and sucrose and dextrose all mixed together. They're using a fake honey, let's put it that way, something super cheap. You can't have my napkins, you have to lick your fingers because that shit stains.
Like I said, fake honey.
Now I know why they lift their fingers out of the way. in fancy
Yeah.
places.
I'm totally wondering about the $9 jug I have.
Of
Is
honey?
Yeah, is it fake or is it real?
Oh, it may have a little water at it, but it's real honey. The issue with the cheap honey is pretty basic. It's pasteurized, and all the honey from all the farms gets poured together into one homogeneous blend. And then they often add a little bit of water. If it's creamed, then all they do is they stir it while it naturally crystallizes. But if it's not creamed, it's probably had some water added to reduce its crystallization point.
So it is. That's nice to know. It's real. So what's fake honey?
Oh, fake honey is what a factory uses in place of honey when they're making marzipan.
Oh.
It's a sugar syrup.
Lovely.
Yeah, and it's got corn syrup in it. It's got glucose and fructose, and it's got those various sticky, thick syrups, and they use that instead of honey because it's so much cheaper than honey. Honey requires the enslavement of a lot of bees.
Stuck in my mustache.
I wish I could keep bees. I love honey. I'd love to keep bees. When I first moved here, I thought about it, and I checked with my neighbor and found that she was allergic to bees. And I figured, I shouldn't have to be told. If you got someone right next door that's going to swell up and need the Benadryl or the whatever, the EpiPen, you don't keep bees. It's just neighborly courtesy. And,
Yeah.
I've been since told that I could have put them on the far side of the yard and they wouldn't have bothered anyone. So, and I did study beekeeping for a bit, and I've continued to keep an interest as to how bees are kept, but it looks to me like there's quite a steep learning curve to get it right.
Yeah.
Also, honeybees tend to shoulder out all of the other natural bees in an area. I learned that just 2 months ago. I didn't even realize it. I thought there was bumblebees and honeybees. And then I knew there was leafcutter bees that live off of fungus. But I didn't realize that there were a whole bunch more pollinator bees, some tinier than a fruit fly, buzzing around out there. And if you got a bunch of honeybees, they take over the area. And that's all you're going to get, is honeybees. And in fact, nature's got all these other little pollinators that need to do that job. Yeah, so the thirst for honey shoulders out wildlife. But I did provide leafcutter bee colony. You'd leave some stumps in your garden. I decorated the garden around the fire pit. So the stumps were kind of like, you could use them as chairs, but they tended to stay in one spot for years. And after about year 2 or 3, leafcutter bees moved in for 2 years.
Cool.
And that now is been the best firewood, because I finally cleared it all out to move the bus in. So what do you think we can do about Guantanamo Bay?
Other than what we are doing, talking about it, hoping people view it.
Talk, 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 talk. But who's supposed to do? Who's the person that does?
No
And what?
clue.
Yeah, I can understand that. I'm trying to think, like, the only thought that comes to my mind is to think of some kind of a letter to write to our government. Saying, just so you know, you're my representative. My opinion on the bay is X. And I've done that, where you write a letter to the person who is elected for your area. You represent my viewpoints. That's your job. You start, you put all the courtesy crap into the letter. You got to sound nice. But your opening paragraph should be something that reminds them that you elected them to represent your point of view. You, personally. Whether you voted for them or not, that's their job. And they have to take an average of the points of view of everybody. But first, they have to know that point of view. And sometimes they go to a lot of trouble to try and get that information. They mail out surveys, they stick online surveys, they try and get people to call you. And we're very resistant to that. I throw out the stuff they mail, I don't click on the online, and I don't answer the phone to the... So, you write them a letter and you tell them your opinion. Straight up. This is a subject, this or these subjects matter to me the most, and this is how I feel about them. Whether or not your representative then reflects your point of view and that of your neighbors, because if you're the odd one out in your neighborhood, you're going to still be the odd one out, and you're not going to be the person that's represented. If you're the only person in your neighborhood that hates trees, no one's going to start chopping down trees. You can chop down the ones in your lawn, but that's it. You have to live with the rest.
Yeah.
There are people who hate trees. They really should move to places like Arizona, Kamloops,
There are no trees.
Sudbury. Yeah.
Treeless places.
Yeah, there are treeless places you can go.
Yeah, the desert works for that. It's really treeless
Sudbury,
there.
Ontario.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've been
the
through
acid
there.
rain killed them. They're starting to come back now.
It's been years since I've been to there.
Well, there will be no old growth. It's all young. I think they probably weakened the land as well by removing too many trees. Maybe acid rain could be handled better by a dense forest than a few little patches of woodland. Little parks,
Yeah.
Well, acid is neutralized by carbon, and carbon comes from living, growing things. So it would still hit the leaves as acidic rain, but by the time it filtered through the forest floor, it would be neutralized. The best filters you can build involve plants and leaf matter and soil and stuff, where the water trickles down through and the plants pull all the crap off, and then underneath you can have fish making shit that goes back up to the top. Aquaponics. Another thing I kind of wanted to get going. I kind of had a little bit of it going in my aquarium in winter, where I had basil and thyme and oregano, and I think I also had some lettuce growing, and the roots dangled into the water. The fish actually chewed off any roots that made it past the baskets that I put around them. I had to put baskets around the roots to protect them from the fish. And I had to keep the water level so that the roots could reach the water without growing outside of the baskets. And yeah, it was like adding an extra filter. I went from having to change the filter weekly to monthly. That's why I finally got rid of them. The filter changes were really difficult to do when I was sick. It was just too much muscle work. Too much extra labor. I can't believe how much idle time I have since I quit Facebook. I'm like, I have to actually do something?
Yeah.
And when I was doing Facebook, I always felt guilty about how long it was taking to get through my notification list and whether or not I'd gotten to everybody's posts for the day and responded to them so they all, you know, with a like at the very least, so that they knew I was paying attention. And you know what made me quit? 3 separate occasions I was scolded for my conversation, for expressing my opinion. Person posts something extremely inflammatory, then if you post anything other than 100% agreement, or if anyone disagrees with you, you get scolded. It's like, don't talk like that. And I'm like, you're posting this shit. You're posting inflammatory, insightful stuff. It's not even like you wrote it. As if I'm free to share my thoughts on the subject. Mm-hmm. And you don't like my thoughts on the subject. I can accept that. Why can't you? Mm-hmm. You know? And after 3 of them, I was just starting to feel put upon. Just utterly stressed out and put upon. So I backed off, and I haven't missed it enough. I have my idle times when I kind of almost miss it because I'm bored. And I think about how damn long it takes to get through everything.
Mm-hmm.
I do need to get back on there at some point, if only to keep track with my cousin. Actually, I think she's on Twitter too, so I could switch over there and keep up with her there. I like the Facebook news feed format. Google Plus has the same thing. So that's what I do is, because I usually have a foot up in my lap, first I lick my fingers, then I wipe the spit on my socks. And then if there's any staining, well, socks get washed every damn day. Socks and underwear, and you can't really reach into your pants and wipe your fingers on your shorts. I wipe my fingers on the top of my socks. It's like my little built-in napkin. I grew up without napkins.
So you made your own.
I rarely need it. But yeah, like popcorn is an example of when you find yourself needing a napkin. And I have napkins. You could ask for one, but then I don't want napkin. I don't want chocolate on them because they'll never get them clean. The next thing you know, I might as well be using disposables because I'm throwing them out anyway.
Soap berries
Oh yeah?
have very strong stain removing powers. I had
Really?
a stain on my sweater that accidentally got set in there, and I'm pretty sure it was a spaghetti stain.
Mm.
And I didn't notice it in time, and then it went to the laundry, and oh, that was permanently there. I couldn't get it off. So I put it in with the soap berries just recently, and now I can hardly see it. It's like 99% gone. I really have to look and hunt, and well, I gave up because fuck it, it's gone.
That is astonishing.
It is.
They seem
Yeah.
so mild.
Mm-hmm. But they work, and plus everything feels like it's had fabric softener added, which it hasn't. It's just, you know, so I throw them in with the clothes and I
That's
walk away
good.
and
Fabric
ignore it.
softener is definitely flammable, and in my opinion, may be cancer causing.
Hmm.
There's no data behind it. There's no fact behind it. I just instinctively
Excuse
think
me.
that it's a cancer agent, fabric softener. I don't know why. I guess because so many damn unnecessary factory conveniences are turning out to have it. And it's very chemical and it stinks really bad. Like, when I smell fabric softener, it's always given me that sense of toxic chemistry. Got a very good nose. I don't think it's as good as a dog's nose. I'd have to get into the habit of smelling shit and assholes to figure it out. And I don't want to. But
Yeah, no thanks.
see, it's backed up by a human brain which does not enjoy those smells.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got a good nose. When it's not stuffed up. Yeah, these were... They make you high, don't they? They really did get you high. Well, I'm going to put a break in this talk. I'm going to go back to it.